Seneca once said, "Life is long if you know how to use it." But how many of us truly grasp the value of time? We drift through our days as if time is infinite, squandering hours on meaningless distractions and petty pursuits, failing to recognize that each moment we waste is a piece of life we can never reclaim. Seneca warned against the careless squandering of life's most precious resource. He likened time to a rare commodity, a treasure that once spent can never be replenished. Imagine waking up every morning with a finite number of gold coins in your hand. Each coin represents a moment of your life, and every action you take spends one coin. The wise person, Seneca advised, guards their time as fiercely as a miser guards his fortune, spending it only on what truly matters: wisdom, self-discipline, and the pursuit of inner peace. But how often do we allow others to steal our time without realizing it? We hand over hours to idle gossip, to trivial conflicts, to scrolling through endless feeds of meaningless content, only to look back and wonder where the day went. Seneca urged us to protect our time like a fortress, to question every request for it, to ask ourselves, is this how I want to spend the limited moments I have left? The Stoic recognizes that while money lost can be earned again, time lost is gone forever. And so they live with a sense of urgency, fully aware that each passing moment is a coin that can never be retrieved. They do not postpone life for later, waiting for the perfect moment to start living meaningfully. Instead, they live now, in this very moment, treating each day as if it were their last, knowing that the only way to avoid the regret of a wasted life is to spend each coin of time deliberately, consciously, and with the full awareness that once it is gone forever. Every moment matters, every second counts, every day is an opportunity to live fully, to embrace life with intention, and to guard the treasure of time with the vigilance of a Stoic. Seneca once said, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it." Imagine a man who spends his days chasing wealth, status, and the approval of others. He is constantly in motion, running from one commitment to the next, believing that his value lies in how busy he is. But at the end of each day he feels empty, exhausted, unfulfilled. He has wasted countless hours on pursuits that do not nourish his soul, leaving him with a life that is full, but not meaningful. Seneca argued that it is not the quantity of years we live that matters, but the quality of those years. Most people, he said, are busy being busy. They fill their schedules with obligations, appointments, and trivial matters, mistaking activity for purpose. They rush from one task to another, never pausing to ask themselves, am I truly living or merely existing? The Stoic, however, approaches each day with intention. They understand that every hour spent in distraction is an hour lost forever, and so they guard their time with fierce determination. They do not allow themselves to be swept away by the currents of busyness, but instead, they anchor themselves to what truly matters, cultivating wisdom, practicing virtue, and nurturing their inner life. Seneca advised his students to practice solitude, to withdraw from the noise of the world and spend time in quiet reflection. In these moments of stillness, they could reconnect with their true selves, assess how they were spending their time, and correct their course if necessary. For the Stoic, solitude is not a retreat from life, but a return to it, a chance to realign their actions with their values and ensure that they are living each day with purpose and intention. And so they do not measure life by the number of days they have lived, but by the number of days they have lived well, days filled with meaning, clarity, and focus. For the Stoic, a single day spent wisely is worth more than a lifetime spent thoughtlessly. They do not fear the passage of time. They fear only wasting it, knowing that life's true wealth is not found in years, but in how those years are spent. Seneca once said, It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, dark ocean, the waves crashing against the shore, each wave representing a moment of life that has passed, each one gone forever. Most people stand frozen, paralyzed by the thought of death, afraid to dive in, afraid to live fully. They cling to the shore, wasting time in hesitation, delaying their dreams, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Seneca warned against this kind of life, a life of postponement, a life spent preparing to live instead of actually living. He believed that the greatest tragedy was not dying, but failing to truly live. Death, he argued, is inevitable. We cannot escape it, we cannot avoid it, and we cannot bargain with it. But what we can do is make the most of the time we have, to live each day as if it were our last, to embrace life fully and fearlessly, to take action instead of waiting for the perfect conditions. The Stoic does not fear death because they understand that life is a series of moments, each one an opportunity to live with purpose and intention. They do not count the years but the moments, focusing not on how long they live but how well they live. Seneca urged his readers to meditate on death daily, not as a morbid obsession but as a powerful motivator to seize the present. "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life," he said. "Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books every day." This practice of memento mori, remembering that we will die, is not a call to despair but a call to action, a reminder that time is limited and that every moment matters. The Stoic does not waste time on trivial matters, petty quarrels, or fleeting pleasures. Instead, they focus on what truly matters, cultivating wisdom, practicing virtue, and leaving a lasting impact. They understand that death is not the enemy. The true enemy is a life unlived, a life spent waiting, a life spent existing rather than truly living. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Imagine a man who has lived his entire life in comfort, shielded from hardship, protected from pain. He has never faced failure, never experienced loss, never tasted the bitterness of rejection. He moves through life like a delicate flower, untested, unchallenged, unprepared for the inevitable storms that lie ahead. Seneca warned against such a life of ease, a life without struggle, a life devoid of trials. The Stoics believed that adversity is not a curse, but a crucible, a fire that forges strength, a storm that reveals our inner fortitude. Seneca advised his students to willingly expose themselves to discomfort, to practice voluntary hardship, to test their limits, and to cultivate resilience. "Difficulties strengthen the mind," he said, "as labor does the body." But in a world that glorifies comfort and convenience, few are willing to embrace adversity willingly. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs, choosing the path of least resistance, seeking out instant gratification, numbing themselves with distractions. But the Stoic chooses a different path, the path of deliberate discomfort. They seek out challenges not to punish themselves but to fortify themselves, to prove that they are stronger than their circumstances, that they can endure pain without losing their inner calm. Seneca recommended practices such as fasting, going without luxuries, and spending time alone in solitude to build mental strength and prepare for life's inevitable hardships. These acts of self-denial are not meant to inflict suffering but to teach the mind that it can endure, that it can survive without the comforts it has grown accustomed to. The Stoic knows that life is not a gentle breeze but a raging storm, and to survive it, one must be strong, unyielding, and unafraid of hardship. They do not curse the storm, they welcome it, for they understand that adversity is the furnace that refines character, the fire that tempers the soul, the test that reveals what one is truly made of. And when the storm passes, they emerge stronger, wiser, and more resolute than ever before. Seneca once said, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man." Imagine a man standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into the abyss. The wind howls around him, the ground trembles beneath his feet, and he is paralyzed by fear. He wants to move forward, to take the leap, to live fully, but the fear of death holds him back, chaining him to a life of hesitation and inaction. Seneca believed that the fear of death was the single greatest obstacle to truly living. Most people spend their days avoiding the thought of death, distracting themselves with trivial pursuits, numbing themselves with pleasures, pretending that they have all the time in the world. But the Stoic faces death head-on, staring into the abyss without flinching, understanding that death is not a distant event but a constant presence, a shadow that walks beside them every moment of every day. This practice of memento mori, remembering that we will die, is not a morbid fixation but a powerful tool for living with purpose and clarity. Seneca urged his students to meditate on death daily, not to instill fear but to instill urgency, to remind them that life is short, that time is fleeting, and that every moment is a gift that will never come again. The Stoic asks himself each morning, "If today were my last day, how would I live it? What would I do? What would I say? What would I leave behind?" This question is not a call to reckless abandon, but a call to deliberate action, a call to cut through the noise of life and focus on what truly matters. Seneca warned that those who fear death waste their lives in the process, clinging to illusions of immortality, putting off their dreams, delaying their purpose, waiting for a tomorrow that may never come. The Stoic, however, lives each day as if it were their last, embracing life fully, loving deeply, giving generously, and leaving nothing unsaid, nothing undone, nothing unresolved. They do not fear death because they know that a life lived with courage, clarity, and purpose is a life that can end without regret, a life that has truly been lived. Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." Imagine a man lying awake at night, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios, his heart pounding with fear of things that have not happened and may never happen. He imagines losing his job, falling ill, being abandoned, facing humiliation. The fear consumes him, paralyzes him, robs him of sleep, and drains him of peace. Seneca observed that most of our suffering is self-inflicted, not by actual events, but by the stories we tell ourselves, the fears we conjure, the catastrophes we imagine. The Stoic understands that the mind can be both a fortress and a prison, and the key to mental freedom lies in mastering our thoughts. Seneca recommended a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, in which one mentally rehearses potential setbacks, losses, and difficulties, not to dwell in negativity, but to prepare the mind to remain calm and composed in the face of adversity. He advised his students to imagine the worst that could happen: the loss of wealth, the betrayal of a friend, the onset of illness, and then to ask themselves, could I endure it? Would I survive it? Would it destroy me? This practice is not about becoming pessimistic, but about becoming resilient, about developing the mental strength to face life's uncertainties with grace and composure. The Stoic knows that life is unpredictable, that fate is beyond their control, but what they can control is their response to it. They do not cling to illusions of security. They train themselves to adapt, to remain unshaken, to see every setback as a test of character, a chance to practice inner calm. Seneca warned against becoming a slave to fear, against letting the mind run wild with catastrophic thinking. He urged his students to question their fears, to challenge their assumptions, to separate what is real from what is imagined. The Stoic does not suffer twice. once from the event itself and once from the fear of it. Instead, they learn to face life head-on, to stand firm amidst the storm, to walk calmly through the darkness knowing that the mind is stronger than any fear, that the only true prison is the one we build within ourselves. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Imagine a man standing in a grand hall surrounded by gold, jewels, and the finest luxuries, yet his eyes are empty, his heart restless, his mind consumed with the desire for more. Despite all his wealth, he feels hollow, dissatisfied, perpetually chasing the next acquisition, the next possession, the next fleeting thrill. Seneca warned against the insatiable desire for more, arguing that true wealth is not measured by what one has but by what one can live without. The Stoic does not measure success by the number of possessions but by the strength of their character, the clarity of their mind, and the peace of their heart. Seneca advised his students to practice voluntary simplicity, to periodically go without comforts and luxuries, to remind themselves that they can survive on less, that happiness is not found in abundance but in contentment. He suggested going without fine food, without a soft bed, without material comforts, not to suffer but to free the mind from the illusion that such things are necessary for happiness. The Stoic understands that every desire is a chain, every craving a shackle, every pursuit of excess a distraction from what truly matters. They do not reject wealth, but they do not depend on it. They do not despise luxury, but they do not attach their worth to it. Seneca observed that the man who is content with little can never be poor, for he is already rich in self-sufficiency, in inner calm, in the understanding that happiness is an internal state, not an external condition. He does not fear losing what he has, for he knows that his true wealth lies in his mind, his character, his inner peace. Seneca urged his students to question their desires, to ask themselves, "Do I truly need this, or do I merely want it? Would my life be any less fulfilled without it? Am I chasing happiness or merely distraction?" The Stoic strives to cultivate a life of simplicity, a life free from the burden of endless cravings, a life rich in clarity and contentment, a life where less is more and more is less. Seneca once said, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." Imagine a man standing at the edge of a vast, beautiful landscape, the sun setting in the distance, the colors painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. But instead of watching the sunset, he stares at his watch, checking the time, planning his next move, waiting for something better to happen tomorrow. Seneca warned against the trap of expectancy, the habit of always looking ahead, always waiting for the future, always postponing life for some imagined ideal that never arrives. He observed that most people live as if they have unlimited time, as if tomorrow is a guarantee, as if life will begin at some later date when the perfect conditions align. But the Stoic understands that tomorrow is an illusion, that the only moment we truly possess is the present, that life is not a rehearsal but a performance happening now, in real time, moment by fleeting moment. Seneca urged his students to stop waiting and start living, to treat each day as if it were their last, to embrace the present with the urgency of someone who knows that time is slipping away. He suggested a practice called dying daily, not in a literal sense, but in the sense of letting go of the future, of releasing the illusion that life is something that will happen later, of accepting that life is happening now, in this very moment. The Stoic does not waste time waiting for the perfect day to arrive. They make today the perfect day by living it fully, by being present, by focusing on what they can control and letting go of what they cannot. They do not defer happiness to some future date when all conditions align. They find happiness in the small, simple moments, in the warmth of the sun, in the sound of the wind, in the breath that fills their lungs. Seneca warned that those who live in constant expectancy are like travelers who never arrive, always moving but never arriving, always planning but never living. The Stoic, however, understands that life is not a destination but a journey. A series of present moments, each one a chance to live fully, to love deeply, to act purposefully, to be fully alive. Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." Imagine a man sitting alone in a room surrounded by books, his face illuminated by the soft glow of a candle. He is old, his hair white, his hands trembling, but his eyes are alive, filled with the hunger for knowledge, the thirst for wisdom, the insatiable desire to keep growing, to keep learning, to keep evolving. Seneca believed that the purpose of life was not to reach a destination but to engage in the endless process of self-improvement, to never stop seeking truth, to never stop refining oneself. He argued that while most people waste their days in trivial pursuits, the Stoic dedicates themselves to the pursuit of wisdom, to the cultivation of virtue, to the mastery of their mind and character. Seneca warned that those who believe they have nothing left to learn are the most ignorant of all, for they are closed off to growth, stagnant in their thinking, trapped in the illusion of certainty. The Stoic, however, remains a perpetual student of life, always seeking to deepen their understanding, always questioning their assumptions, always challenging their beliefs. Seneca advised his students to read widely, to engage in thoughtful conversations, to reflect daily on their actions and decisions, to learn not only from the wise but also from the foolish. For every experience, every encounter, every mistake is a lesson waiting to be learned. He urged them to view life as a classroom, each day a new lesson, each challenge a new test, each failure a new opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, more resilient. The Stoic does not fear change. They embrace it, knowing that change is the only constant, that every moment is a chance to learn, to adapt, to evolve. They do not cling to old beliefs out of pride or stubbornness. They remain open to new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of thinking. For the Stoic, life is not a fixed path but a flowing river, ever changing, ever moving, ever teaching. They do not measure success by how much they have acquired or achieved, but by how much they have learned, how much they have grown, how much they have improved their mind, their character, their soul. And so, they keep learning, keep growing, keep seeking the truth until their final breath, knowing that a life spent in pursuit of wisdom is a life well lived, a life without regret, a life that will echo through eternity. Seneca once said, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." Imagine a man standing in the middle of a bustling city, surrounded by noise, people, and chaos. He stares at the clock tower, watching the seconds tick away, feeling the weight of time pressing down upon him. He is overwhelmed by the enormity of life, paralyzed by the uncertainty of the future, haunted by the regrets of the past. But Seneca taught that the secret to living fully lies not in grasping for tomorrow or lamenting yesterday, but in embracing today, in treating each day as a complete life unto itself, a miniature version of eternity. The Stoic does not wait for the perfect moment to start living. They seize the moment at hand, making every day a masterpiece, every moment a precious gem. Seneca urged his students to practice what he called the one day at a time mindset, to wake up each morning as if it were their last, to live each day as if it were a life in itself, to fill every hour with purpose, every minute with meaning, every second with presence. He warned that those who waste today planning for tomorrow are like travelers who never reach their destination, always moving but never arriving, always waiting but never living. The Stoic understands that life is not a linear path stretching endlessly into the future. It is a series of present moments, each one an opportunity to act with virtue, to speak with wisdom, to think with clarity. They do not count their days by the number of years they have lived, but by the number of moments they have truly been present. Seneca advised his students to reflect each night before going to sleep, asking themselves, "What did I do well today? Where did I waste time? How could I have lived more fully?" This practice of daily reflection serves as a compass, guiding them back to the path of purposeful living, reminding them that time is not something to be spent carelessly but to be invested wisely. The Stoic knows that life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the number of moments that take our breath away. Moments of deep connection, moments of profound insight, moments of unshakable calm. And so they live each day as if it were a lifetime, embracing each morning as a new beginning, each night as a chance to reflect, each moment as a gift that will never come again.